Now, if you're training calisthenics at any level, I highly recommend that you're working towards the shoulder stand position. Now that's going to benefit you for muscle ups, handstand push ups, planches, press handstands, even transitions between poses in yoga practice. I'm going to take you through beginner levels, how to spot yourself, how to get in and out of the position, right through to advanced positions up on the rings. Now the position we're aiming for with the shoulder stand is to have the head and shoulders in front of the hands and have the feet back in that direction. So you'll have an angle to the position. The angle will be dictated by how far the shoulders or head are in front of the hands. As the head and shoulder comes forward, you'll notice the feet will go backwards, and vice versa. As the head and shoulder comes back towards the hands, the feet come up again. And you can use that depending on what skill you're working towards, but also to control the balance. And that applies both in the straight position and the tuck position on all the different types of equipment. And when first learning this, I'd recommend that you use something lower, not higher. Obviously, when you're higher, there's more clearance, which can in some ways be easier to enter and exit the position, but obviously there's more risk of falling out, and you don't want to scare yourself in the position. So most people are going to feel much safer and much more happier to go inverted on a lower box or set of P-bars. And I'm using these IKEA steps. They're super strong, super stable, but I can also adjust them to be where I want them to be. So I'm aiming to have my hands externally rotated. That brings the elbows in, so the upper arm in towards the torso. So if we look front on, it's going to be like that. So see how my torso is actually coming in contact with my upper arm. Then I'm taking the head and shoulders down, hips up in the air. I'm going to step into the position. Now if I do it back to wall, I can learn how to spot myself. Even if I don't quite need that yet, it's really good to have it, especially if you're going to go to more of the advanced options. So I'm going to set up with enough clearance for my head and shoulders to be down here somewhere. Going to go into that same position, so externally rotate, arms come into this torso. I'm going to come up onto my toes. I'm going to take my hips in the air. Notice how high my hips are. Now if I take my head and shoulders forwards, notice how it moves my elbow position. And if I step one leg up, I can step the other leg up. Now that's just touching the peak of my cap. So to give myself a little bit more play, I'm turning the hat around, exactly the same, into that position. Come forwards enough so this toe becomes very light, and then just step up. So that's a great way to do it. Look how controlled that is. I'm not jumping or kicking into the position. We want to be able to very slowly control the position. And that's the beauty of having the head and shoulders lower than the hands. It should naturally pull up the hips like a seesaw. More weight goes down and forwards. The legs, hips slowly come up. If I need to reduce the speed, I just do the opposite. I bring the head and shoulders up, which should pull the hips and the legs down. So then we want to have that one connection between the legs and the shoulders and the head. Now to use the wall as a spotter, I'm just going to take the other leg. I'm going to have one on the leg floor, one up towards the wall in that position. Now as I come up, I can feel where the wall is, and then I can play with that position, trying to find balance, knowing I've got a stopper there. And then I can just come into that position and use the wall as needed, and I can feel the effects of using the shoulders and the hands to move the position forwards and backwards. Now if I feel comfortable there, I can start to extend the legs. Now when we extend the legs, we want to think about a channel of balance is like this. In a handstand, it's like this. We can move around inside that balance window. If I fall outside of my window, I'm going to overbalance. I'm going to splat against the wall or the floor. If I fall down this side of the window of balance, I'm going to go down to my feet to the floor. So when we're opening up from a tuck position, the angle of balance is like this, and I want to move up inside that channel, not outside towards overbalance, not downwards towards underbalance. So notice the angle. I'm going to go into that tuck position, and then I'm just going to slowly straighten outwards. So I've got a straight line for my head, shoulders, hips, and feet, and then I come back in to that position again, and then I come back out. That's much easier than trying to do this to go into the position, because that's going to tend to whip me over, and it's going to be more of a direction like this instead of like that. So I want that channel of balance inside that window. And obviously I can do exactly the same, but have the foot there for balance as needed against the wall. And then look, notice how I'm balancing and changing the angle as needed. And that's really powerful when we start working things like eccentric handstand push-ups or deficit full range handstand push-ups, where I'm coming down, have to change direction of that shoulder stand and go back up. I can use that window of balance, and I can also play with it to help me out of the bottom position when I'm working on that deficit handstand push-up. Use the overbalance to my advantage because I know how to tip towards it. Now we could just go up to these P-bars, but I just want to show you a slightly different variation as well, where I'm either going to use one step or one wooden box or one wall where it's not separated. So with this one we was using 2 stools. With the ones I showed at the start, I was using 2 bars. But I can do exactly the same movement using this one step. To create the space here, because it's not that wide, I'm going to actually turn the hands and hold onto the side of the step and then take my head and shoulders in front. Still going to use the wall as needed. So there, arms into the side. I can go into my tuck position there, and then I can open out if I have it into that straight position and come back again. And that works exactly the same on something higher. So arms into the side, into the tuck position. I can go all the way up there. If you had a wider box, you can just put your hands there. So I can have my hands around the front, exactly the same. Need to get over the top, too short, but exactly the same position, tuck and shoulder stand. It's not quite wide enough. Now notice when I'm using a higher surface that I can't actually float into the position, that I can't get enough weight down in front of the hands because the surface I'm using for my hands is too high. So the other way we can do that is to use an L-sit entry, which is a great exercise in itself, and you would have seen me use that in some of the other videos where I go from an L-sit position through to the shoulder stand, and that allows us to use the seesaw even more. So as I go from L-sit here, I take the head and shoulders down, hips and legs come up, and then now I'm in that shoulder stand. From there I can go into straight, or I can come back down and go back through to the L-sit. So that's a great way of accessing that shoulder stand position if you can't climb into the position. But obviously you need to work on that L-sit to shoulder stand first. And the best way to do that is to have each individual component. So to have the shoulder stand, to have the L-sit, and then first work on the eccentric. To do that, you can either use at lower bars or boxes, or step into your shoulder stand. So there, and then do a really slow eccentric from shoulder stand through to L-sit. Then once we're starting to build some confidence and strength in the shoulder stand position, we can start to advance it and build upon it. One cool way to do it, especially if you're working towards things like handstand push-ups, is to lower into the position. So going directly into a straight body, and you can do that on any height, but it will definitely be easier on something lower. You just need to have the clearance for the head and the shoulders. So I'm going to externally rotate the hands. I'm going to step into the position a bit like a pike push-up, and then come from there into the straight position. And then I can do the same on the way back out. Now obviously you need quite a bit of strength in that bottom position, or that deficit, handstand push-up deficit pike push-up, to be able to float the toes, but you could just keep a toe on the floor and then just slowly progress to more weight in the hands. Other progressions would be to go onto something like a single bar, which takes quite a bit of balance and control to hold there. And obviously there's more risk of going over, or we can go to the rings. And if we're working towards those ring progressions, we then need to make sure that we have an exit strategy, because it's a little bit different on the rings and things can go crazy. I wouldn't use a wall support. I wouldn't get someone to spot you. I would just work out what you're going to do if you go through the rings. And the easiest way to do that is to purposely do it. So we come up into this position, so you support with your knees up, and then head and shoulders down, and just try and roll through the rings. So that's the worst thing that's going to happen, is you're going to go through. So long as you know what to do and you practice a few repetitions of that, you'll be fine. Now the cool thing with the rings when we go into the shoulder stand is I can turn them as needed in the moment. So I can really bring the hands in and get the arms into the torso to give me that support or that contact, so I can get into that nice shoulder stand position. So again, we'll be entering through the L-sit. So from there, I'm going to take the hips back, head and shoulders down, arms into the side, and there's my tuck position. See the same angle? I can straighten there, but I'm limited by the ceiling, and then back around to that position. So then I know how to enter, and I know how to exit, and I know how to bail. Exactly the same balance mechanism in terms of moving the hands away from the shoulders, or the shoulders away from the hands and back again. But having that rotation, or that ability to rotate the rings, also creates some control in your balance. And it is something you can think about in the moment, but it's probably just going to come from more repetitions and more practice of it. So I'd highly recommend your work in the shoulder stand. Doesn't matter what level you're at or what skills you're working towards, it's going to be very beneficial. If you'd like help with your training, check out my website, www.paultwyman.com.au. I offer online coaching, or I have my app. Links are down in the description, and I'll speak to you in the next one. Thanks guys.